fastening their shoes, pumping their tires, and securing their helmets has, by now, become second nature to these riders. There hasn't been a week in months without training.
We usually start our training off with an indoor cycling ride, which launches the training sessions, but it recaps our ride from the previous year. So that's usually in February, and that would start the next weekend with our training ride. So our training rides alternate every 2 weeks on either a Saturday or a Sunday. And we start with about 60K and then gradually built up. Our last training ride our max was 200K.
And that's nothing compared to what these riders will soon tackle. They've been training for a ride of mammoth proportion. A ride that will bring them from Kelowna to North Delta, 400 kilometers of mountainous terrain, with a total ascent of 3,714 meters. And they will ride it all in one day. It will take them 19 hours.
It's almost tougher emotionally than it is anywhere else. And I think any long distance event, that tends to be what happens. But there's so many factors from a physical standpoint you have to look at. Hydration, make sure you're eating enough, drinking enough, and keeping your body in shape enough to get from A to B successfully without becoming dehydrated or malnourished on the way, having a sugar crash because you didn't eat enough. And we've had some people that have gone a little bonkers towards the end of the ride because they didn't manage their food or their drink well enough, and so physically it can be very challenging. But I find the toughest part that I've run into most people, it's the emotional part that they'll have an issue with at some point in the ride. But I tell you, when you arrive in Delta, once you cross the Fraser River back and you're in the last home stretch of about an hour-and-a-half ride, the spirits in the whole group just start, the chit-chat starts picking up. People are smiling, laughing, crying with each other. I spent the whole time one year in tears from one end to the other. For an hour and a half, I was in tears just because we were so happy with what had gone on. It was just beautiful. And you come around that last corner or the last stretch and you see all the people waiting for you at Delta, and it's just, at that point you've got so much energy, you're wondering why you couldn't do it over again. Until you get off your bike, then you realize, not gonna happen.
The course was chosen specifically to symbolize the cause these cyclists are riding for. Called the Ride2Survive, the annual event is a completely volunteer-run initiative that raises money for cancer research.
Fighting fatigue and the elements and the terrain and just the duration can be quite challenging. It is supposed to represent a day of suffering that somebody with cancer would go through, hence the course and the terrain. I've been on both sides of the fence with that, and yeah, there's a lot of ups and downs, and when you're fighting cancer, you don't want to stop. So
we look at the analogy of a cancer treatment, and people who are diagnosed with cancer, they kind of get their treatment protocols, their chemotherapy schedules, and sometimes they change those schedules. Sometimes those people don't make it through their treatments and they're not with us anymore, and some do very well. So the analogy of the ride is, it is supposed to be tough. It is supposed to be feeling like you're going to give up sometimes. It's supposed to be feeling like you can handle this and you can battle it and you can do it. And you do it because of the police escorts, the ambulance escort, the ride captains, all of the volunteers who are on the ground getting you fed, watered, and ready back on your bike. And then the weather plays a play in it. We don't know what we're going to get on ride day. So just like cancer treatments, you don't know how you're going to fare out of those treatments and if you're going to be sick or if you're going to be okay. So the analogy of behind the ride is, it is supposed to be tough. It's supposed to be tough.
And it is tough. The day before the ride, people gather at South Shore Cycle on Scott Road. With people signed in and things packed, the bus is boarded and it's off to Kelowna.
Are you ready? Ready!
The road trip is interesting, especially on the bus, because you're going up the highway that you're going to be coming down the other way. And after the bus has been going down this long hill for a really long time, all the first-time riders are on the bus and their eyes are about that big looking at this hill, and you could just see them sweating because of what's happening. And of course, all the rest of us are making it sound like it's going to be absolute hell the next day.
The bikes arrive, pedals are attached, and handles tuned. Inside the Main Street Community Church in Kelowna, church members graciously prepare a meal for the riders and volunteers. This church has supported the Ride to Survive since day one.
I think the reality is we caught a hold of the vision that this all started from, and we want to keep it going as long as possible. It's an incredible sense to see all these riders mounting up on their bikes and riding for a cause with people in mind that are either fighting or have fought or lost to cancer. And that's the reason we do it, is because we know people who've been affected by the disease.
As is the case with most of those here tonight. Everyone involved with the Ride to Survive has a reason for being here.
What really inspires me is the cancer that my son had 13 years ago, and he passed away sadly at the age of 14 from leukemia. So some of the last words he said to me was, "Dad, I'd love to find a cure for cancer." So in his passing, those words completely resonated with me, and I continue to do whatever I can do to battle the battle for cancer. So this 400K ride tomorrow is something that, you know, every pedal of the way, every stroke of the way inspires me for my Michael.
This will be Robinson's 5th time cycling in the Ride to Survive. On the other hand, a newbie to the event is first-time rider Catherine Orava.
Well, I've known about the Ride to Survive for about 6 years, going to spinning classes with Carrie and Vicky. And I was going to do it last year in 2009, but my mother got diagnosed with terminal cancer. So I had to look after her, and so I decided to do it this year.
Her mother passed away 10 months ago at the age of 77.
Well, I got involved about 3 years ago. This will be my 3rd ride. And I got involved, one, because I love cycling. I've always been a big cyclist. And 2, I'm a cancer survivor. So I wanted to put the 2 of those together. And for the first year, it was more about the riding and doing it for me because I could. But it's way, way more than that now. It's about being part of this amazing community.
So I knew about the ride because Rochelle's my friend, but this year is special for me in particular because I was diagnosed with breast cancer in January of 2010, and had surgery on the 1st of April. And I'm someone who's benefited tremendously from research very recently. I've been able to avoid chemo because of it, and the surgery I had wasn't available 2 years ago, so had I been diagnosed even 2 or 3 years ago, this would have been a completely different story. My surgery would have been different, and I would have done chemo. So it's really special for me to be here, and I'm just grateful.
Tadosachuk and Hewitt are proof that advances in cancer research do save lives. This is also true of Rich Gestel.
The biggest thing, it was surprising for me. I was 27. And I was running 2 marathons a year, into cycling and everything. I didn't drink, didn't smoke, very healthy, right? And for me, they noticed a large lump just above my right collarbone. They pulled it out in October of 2004 and found out it was cancerous. It was 7 by 5 centimeter tumor in my neck. It was attached to my thyroid. So they had to go back in, pull the rest of my thyroid out, clean out the thyroid bed. And then, yeah, a little bit of radiation following December, and yeah, it's been just over 5 years clean.
But Gestel isn't riding for himself or for other survivors. He's riding for future generations.
Now, I'll be honest with you, in the beginning, it was riding for those who have lost, those who are fighting, right? This year, there's a spirit around about that. It's been more for the future, and we're in it for the future. A lot to do with the birth of our daughter. Now that's a story on its own because I was supposed to be not able to have children. And we now have a beautiful 9-month-old daughter, Samara. Having said that, I want to know that she's not going to have to worry, and that you know, it's amazing the progression, but we're still not there. Like, the war is on, and it's not won yet, but we're getting there. So, and that's what it's for me.
Now in his 4th year of riding in the event, Gestel is a team captain who will help lead the cyclists to the finish line. But first, the group needs to get to the start line. After a hearty, carb-filled dinner and an emotional meeting where, one by one, the group shares their reasons for being here, it's time for bed. It's already 10 p.m. The wake-up call is only 5 hours away.
Get to bed, try and sleep, maybe not, for a little while, and then the next morning you're up at 3.
Up at 3, getting the oatmeal, the hot oatmeal, it fed into everybody, and everybody's running around, where's my helmet, where's my bike, where's my this, and pretty soon everybody's out in the parking lot, it's pitch black, and everybody's got their lights on their bikes, and 4 o'clock sharp, we're getting bailed out by the Mayor of Kelowna, riding down the highway, and you've got a 52-kilometer climb from that point on.
At 4 a.m., the first climb of the day is surely waking up the riders. This is the 6th year for the Ride2Survive. It started in 2005. Today, about 100 cyclists are taking part, much larger than the inaugural year.
So there were 2 guys, one guy who lived in Kelowna who was a cancer survivor, and a guy who lived here in Delta. They were good friends. They rode together, did Ironman together, cycled a ton together, and they came up with the concept of connecting the 2 cities with a ride from one city to the other and do something around cancer. And that was kind of the inception of it. We had a bike club that one of the guys was a member of, which was Team Coastal and Delta Club. And so the hat kind of got passed around Team Coastal to find some crazy people to do this ride from Kelowna to Delta. And 17 people signed up, knowing very little about what they were going to do, and that was day 1.
They raised about $15,000 and decided to make the event an annual one, with more organization, more riders, and more fundraising. Kunsley stepped up to the plate to organize the event, and he quickly roped his wife Vicky into helping.
He was communicating with me throughout the ride, telling me how they were doing, and it kind of sounded kind of cool. And then the next year, 3 weeks before the ride, somebody needed a relay partner. We decided to open up the relay teams, and he said, "You're in," and I went, "Okay." And then we also just started realizing that the food that they needed on this ride needed to be more managed, because some of them showed up with no food or very little food or just power bars. And we just decided that, you know what, this is something that we can take on, and the food just kind of has blossomed in donations as well. We don't take that out of the donation money that our donors give us, and have been riding relay since.
The Ride2Survive takes a lot to organize, which means a lot of volunteers. In fact, everyone involved with the ride is a volunteer. From the organizers, to the riders, to the Delta Police escorts, to the support team that accompanies the riders on ride day. They're all volunteers.
I'm sorry, but I don't care if you're Lance Armstrong or what. Without the volunteers and the crew, the riders would not make it. That's just the way it is. And so, to me, I think they work harder than we do.
The ride is carefully arranged into legs, with pit stops in between, where the riders have 10 minutes to eat, go to the bathroom, change their clothing, fill their water bottles, rest and stretch before heading out on the next leg. There is a 10-minute break every hour or so, plus 2 40-minute full meal breaks along the way.